for the fire rating prevention. So they will have to comply with all of that.
Yeah, as long as it meets a 1 hour burn.
I
notice
believe
rating,
that's correct.
do whatever layers you want.
We recently had a project that has the charred wood siding, and the contractor was just over the moon with it. He loved it. It's fire resistant, and it has a really low maintenance um, need for it. So we do see it from time.
Any other questions from the board? I have one question, and this is just in regards to parking requirements. So is it correct that the junior ADU does not by itself require an additional parking place?
That is correct.
Okay.
So I can reference the exact code from our town municipal code. It is Woodside Municipal Code section 153 .211 C number 7, which says that the JADU does not require additional parking at the site.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions? I assume no.
No.
I can't see all of you, so I'm just sort of okay. All right, with that, then we'll move on to the applicant's presentation. Would the applicant like to give a presentation at this time?
Hi, my name is Doug. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Doug with Mark Gross Architects. I'm happy to, good evening to all the members. I'm happy to present our project. It's a simple farmhouse design residence with clean details which complement the town's vernacular. You can see that the residence is designed to be wide and shallow to minimize grading. And we are using, somebody referenced the fire code. We do have to comply with the Chapter 7 building code requirements for fire resistance. So the garage doors, siding, window frames, there's a long list of things that we have to comply with, and which we will meet all those requirements. I'm just here to answer any questions you have about the design. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have questions of the applicant?
I was just wondering, did you design, there's a house that was designed on Glenwood, maybe the second or third house in on the right. Were you the architect on that house? It's an attractive gray.
No, we were the architects on the house that's actually on, it's a little bit hard to hear you, but yes, on Glenwood. There's a house that's all shingle.
Right,
siding,
right.
a 2-story. Yeah, we designed that house as well.
Oh, okay, I thought so. That's an attractive looking house.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, my question getting to it's interesting given the color scheme that you picked on that house, which is a gray shingle beige, if we're talking about the right house, that, fits more into the organic nature of Woodside and meets more of our guidelines. And yet this house it seems to be white, which is a bit unusual.
Right, we're using white siding. We were kind of looking at the town hall building and some of the structures in the historic part of town that are white. And we're using kind of a very light gray trim color around the windows. And then the dark black door, entry door, and the light gray roof. So we were trying to imitate a traditional farmhouse in our color scheme.
I'm just wondering if that color is set in stone, because even though we've done it at some of the historical buildings in town, it is not part of the residential design guidelines of having more of an organic blend into the fabric of the neighborhood. How strongly do you and the owners feel about this color?
I know that was their, or is their preferred color scheme. And would like to use it if it's allowed. But, you know, we're always open to whatever is required.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add to that, we've been, as a board, pretty consistent over the last 2 years with regards to feedback on colors that are close to white. I think our feedback has always been to look for something a little off-white. Can still be warm color, preferably. Don't have to go all the way to beige, but just something that will just take the starkness of the white down a notch.
Right. Yeah, I think there are some nice white colors out there, or off-white colors that would still give us the general effect of what the homeowner is looking for.
Yep. And as my fellow member mentioned, the residential guidelines actually call this out quite clearly. So worth having a review of that.
Right.
Any other questions from the board to the applicant?
The other
Sorry.
question I have has there been any neighborhood outreach? Have you talked to, I mean, it's kind of a close street with everybody together. Have you had a chance to talk to the neighbors and show them the plans and the materials?
No, I'm not aware of any neighbor outreach.
Any other questions from fellow members?
Not me.
Well, I do have one other question on the fence. It says in the description that it's an open fence, but when you look at the rendering, it looks like it's a closed fence. And again, getting back to the guidelines, it's interesting on one side of the fence, it's a closed fence, and on the other side, it's the open deer fence that meets the Woodside guidelines, design guidelines for an open fence. I'm just wondering what's your fence going to look like that you have there? Is it in the rendering, or the description says it's open?
Well, from what I recall on the guidelines, it said that the gate had to be 40% open. So only the gate is 40% open. The rest of the fencing is just a standard vertical board fencing.
I can just clarify that in terms of the requirements. So vehicle gates are required to be at least 40% open. The fencing, there's not a requirement for open fencing. It is encouraged. With solid fencing, it has to be further set back from the street. So whereas an open fence might be able to be 10 or 20 feet back from the street, in the R1 district, a solid fence needs to be at least 30 feet back from the street if it's over 4 feet tall. And we do find that in the Glens, it tends to be an area where there are more solid fences given the proximity of residences to each other, but they will have to, if they do a solid fence, they will have to comply with the setback requirements.
Thank you for that clarification, Sage. Any other questions of the applicant from the board?
I had one question. I noticed with the total floor area, there's about 1,100 square foot left in your allowance. And you only have one JADU despite being allowed an additional ADU. Were the homeowners aware of this allowance? And if so, was there a reason not to take advantage of it?
Was that, I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you. Was that the, why they're not doing a full ADU? Is that the question?
Yeah, in the code, oh, Jesus. Now I see where I need to be. Yes, in the code, there's an allowance for a JADU and an additional ADU detached or attached.
Correct.
My question was, if the applicants were aware of that allowance, and if so, why they chose not to take advantage of it?
They just wanted to build this amount of square footage. And they may consider a detached ADU in the future, but they're aware of it, yes.
Thank you.
Good. Any additional questions of the applicant?
Not on the board.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to invite the public to comment.
We have, again, no one in the room, but we have
Okay.
3 members online. We have Cortland, Deborah, and Eric. If any of those would like to comment, please raise your hand virtually and we'll call on you.
There are no raised hands.
Okay, we will close the public hearing on this item and move to board discussion. Would anyone in the room like to kick us off?
Start.
In which room?
Your room?
I can start. I think they
All
did
right,
a nice
thank you.
job of keeping the property not too close to the neighbors. There is a considerable amount of glass, but when you look at the placement on the property, it doesn't seem like it's going to be affecting the neighbors adversely. I think they did a nice job. I see that it is white, but it is a soft white. It's not stark white. And I think when we see the actual sample that we might feel comfortable with it. And the house on Kenyatta, close to the Glens, is also the stark white with the same trims. And it is traditional in this farmhouse style that it would be white with dark trims. I think they did a nice job keeping to the theme.
Thank you. Anyone else in your room?
I would like to see some neighborhood outreach. I think it's usually called for around this time.
It's not required by the municipal code. The town provides notices to all property owners within 300 feet. Even though we haven't received any comments as a requirement, it's just something that's not required by the municipal code.
Do we know if the people that are in the room are neighbors or if they?
I recognize some of the names. I believe that at least one's a neighbor, if not more.
Someone's raised their hand.
Deborah, you'd like to speak? Just unmute yourself.
Deborah, if you'd like to speak, you just need to unmute yourself.
Nope.
Hand's gone down.
Yes. Okay, any other member of the board in the room would like to offer comments?
I mean, I have kind of the same comments as the other members of the board. I would like to see a less white color, but if it is off-white and if it'll be shown in samples, then I'm happy to see it in samples. But the fence, it is, the fence and other landscape elements we don't have a landscape plan yet, so can't really comment on that now, and we can comment on that if we see it again. I do like how the building is set back and positioned on the site, you know, to echo Member Delgavia's comments. Yeah, it's a well-designed site.
I did
Okay.
have an opportunity to look at the property and the plans, and it's a very nice property with a very suitable design for that neighborhood. So I was very pleased with it.
Good, thank you. I'll just offer my perspective. I mean, my comments pretty much echo my fellow members. I think with a contemporary farmhouse design, you know, we see a lot of that within Woodside. Wouldn't anticipate much criticism of it from surrounding neighbors. As it pertains to the fenestration, I think my only reservation is on the rear with the 3 large sliders. I mean, this is one area that's a bit of a departure from contemporary farmhouse style. And of course, what we're really concerned about is light pollution or projection of light. So I think the primary concern there might be the impact on the neighbors at the rear with regards to the light emitting from those 3 large sliders. But other than that, I mean, I commend the applicant on the selection of the style of the farmhouse, and the overall style I think is quite well executed with regards to placement on the site and just generally the breakup of the massing to accommodate structure of this size, including the JADU. So that's my summary. Any final comments from my fellow members? None?
So where we are is the applicant has not installed story poles. This is conceptual design review, so it's not required. The board does not have too many comments. I'll summarize those in a moment. So the options are the applicant can ask to come back to ASRB for formal design review with story poles installed, or an alternative option, which is more common when there are not significant project changes required, is that the ASRB can continue the conceptual design review, allow the applicant to install story poles with the intent of placing that on a future consent agenda to allow staff to complete the formal design review. If there's anything new that comes to light with regards to the story pole installation, that item can be pulled off the consent agenda for further comment. And then what I'll do is I'll jump into my summary because there's been a couple comments about the color, but some board members seem to find it acceptable. And so what we'll want to find is if any colors should be changed. And if that's the case, and it is brought back on the consent agenda, it's something that could be provided at that time, as opposed to having to have the whole complete formal design review application. So the ASRB commended the applicant for a new residence that is well placed on a lot, providing low impacts to neighboring properties. The applicant also is commended for the farmhouse design, which is suitable for the neighborhood. And some recommendations that I've heard from some of the members, so I want to make sure that we have at least the majority of these comments. I'm sorry, the majority of members agree with these comments, is that it's recommended that the applicant review the fenestration at the lower level at the rear of the property for the large sliding glass doors to make them more consistent with the style of the building and to reduce the amount of glazing to minimize light emission. Also, the other comment that was recommended is for the applicant to provide a color that is off-white, a little bit darker than what is being shown. And those are the 2 recommendations that I've heard. I just want to know if the board is okay with all of those recommendations, if there's anything else that should be included.
I'd like to just include that I know that the neighbors will get notice when the story poles go up. But if there's more of a concerted effort by the applicants to, you know, shake hands, introduce themselves and talk to the neighbors, that would be helpful.
Sure. So is there any members of the board, I would say, that would disagree with having any of those comments on? So we have comments about the fenestration, the color, and doing to outline what they've done for community outreach for the next stage.
I'm good with that.
Acceptable to all members? Okay.
Yes.
So with that, then
Yes.
someone could make a motion and decide. Go ahead, Member Middleman. Do you have?
Oh, I was gonna let you finish.
Oh, sorry. Just that you could make a motion, and again, the choices are to bring this back on consent with story polls, with the intent of having staff complete the formal design review. You can also ask for a color at that time, or the other alternatives is that they just move on to formal design review and have the entire formal design review come back to ASRB for review, at which time story polls would be installed.
Just a quick process clarification, Sage. So in the staff report under story polls, it specifically states that the board cannot refer a project to staff for formal without story polls being installed. So would bringing it back on consent satisfy that requirement?
Yeah, so it would still be conceptual design review. So what we'd actually be doing today is continuing the item. And it can always be pulled off consent. That's just an efficient way, if there's no further comments, that it can be moved along. But the idea is that it's not moving to formal design review yet until the story polls are installed.
Got it.
So to clarify, the motion would be to continue the conceptual and place it on a future consent agenda.
Yes, and then I would ask, would you like to see the color sample at that time? Okay,
Just,
yeah.
consent.
Sure, sure. So, so with that consent, that the one item that they would be bringing back is the materials board, and that could be reviewed by the ASR.
The motion I was going to make was to continue it on conceptual for a future consent item, provided that the materials board and the landscape plan
And a landscape plan.
was provided at that time.
Have that materials and landscape return on consent, and with the other comments to be addressed at formal design review regarding the fenestration and the neighborhood outreach.
Second.
Chair Lindsay,
Yes.
Vice Chair Comra, Member Delgavio, Member Middleman,
Yes.
Member Sullivan.
Yes.
Great, thank you. That will close that that public item. As I see, there's no other items. I guess the only thing remaining is whether we have a director's report.
No, nothing further. Just I'll echo what Chair Lindsay said at the beginning, but welcome to the board, Bob, and we're happy to have you. Nothing else to note at this time.
Okay. A question, is it looking as though we have full agendas for the upcoming meetings in the months of April and May?
Not sure about the second meeting in April, but we do have one item for the April 7th meeting right now, tentatively.
Good. Okay, if there's no other items or communication from board members, then I will adjourn the meeting. Does anyone have anything they wish to share?
No, we miss you.
Oh. Flying home on Tuesday. Next Tuesday. Good. With that, well, I will adjourn the meeting at 5:04 p.m.
Great. Thank you.
You know,
Thanks.